In the vast, glittering expanse of Zerathia, where stars wove tapestries across the night sky and ancient spires pierced the heavens like forgotten dreams, a curse had fallen upon the royal bloodline. Lyra, the daughter of Queen Elara, was no ordinary princess. Her hair cascaded like fresh fallen snow, framing a face of ethereal beauty, pale skin glowing under the twin moons, pointed ears peeking delicately from beneath those silken strands, and a figure that curved with an allure that could make even the coldest hearts stutter. She moved in gowns of shimmering fabric that hugged her form, elegant yet teasing, as if designed by the gods themselves to whisper secrets of desire. But beneath that captivating exterior lurked a nightmare. Nanites, those insidious relics from a long-lost war, had infested her body. Tiny machines, forged in the fires of ancient conflicts, now turned her into a living weapon of destruction. No one could approach her without peril. The nanites swarmed like invisible storms, dismantling flesh and metal alike, reducing healers and guardians to ash in moments. The Empire's finest minds, brilliant alien scholars with minds vast as nebulae, had tried everything: energy fields, psychic barriers, even sacrificial drones sent to probe her aura. All failed. Lyra's chambers in the Crystal Palace became a forbidden tomb, echoing with her lonely cries as the machines ravaged her from within, twisting her powers into chaos. She could shatter walls with a thought, summon tempests of energy that scorched the air, but control that eluded her, leaving her isolated, a goddess trapped in her own storm. Queen Elara, her once vibrant eyes now shadowed with despair, had scoured the galaxies for a cure. Diplomats raced through wormholes, forging uneasy alliances with distant worlds, including the fledgling human colonies on the edge of known space. Humans, those scrappy, resilient upstarts from Earth, were seen as curiosities at best, primitives with their clunky tech and boundless optimism. But desperation breeds strange bedfellows. Whispers reached Zerathia of a man named Elara, a single father-turned-technician, who had lost his own daughter to a similar plague years ago on a forsaken outpost. He wasn't a warrior or a sage, just a man with calloused hands and a heart scarred by grief, tinkering in the shadows of humanity's frontier labs. Ellie's story was one of quiet tragedy. His daughter, little Mia, had been claimed by experimental nanites gone wrong during a corporate mishap on Titan Station. He'd watched her fade, her tiny body overrun by the very tech meant to heal her. In his anguish, he'd delved into forbidden research, modifying his own bloodstream with hybrid nanites, part human DNA, part salvaged alien code, to prevent the same fate from befalling others. It made him a pariah among his kind, but also a legend in underground circles. When Zerathian envoys arrived at his doorstep, cloaked in holographic disguises, offering riches beyond imagination, Elara refused the gold. "I don't do this for thrones," he said, his voice rough like gravel under boots. "I do it for the ones we've lost." The journey to Zerathia was a blur of hyperspace jumps and cultural clashes. Elara stepped off the shuttle onto the palace grounds, his simple jumpsuit a stark contrast to the opulent alien finery. Guards with luminous armor eyed him warily, their pointed ears twitching like Lyra's own. He could feel the weight of their skepticism to them. He was just another fragile human, bound to crumble like the rest. But as he was led through corridors lined with glowing crystals, a strange pull tugged at his chest. Whispers of Lyra's beauty and torment had preceded her, tales of a princess whose touch could kill, yet whose eyes held the loneliness of stars. They brought him to the observation chamber, a vast dome overlooking her isolated sanctum. Through reinforced glass that hummed with energy shields, Elara saw her for the first time. Lyra paced like a caged comet, her white hair flowing in an unnatural breeze, stirred by the nanites. Her gown, a cascade of silver threads that clung to her curves, revealed glimpses of her graceful form, slender waist, full hips swaying with each step, and those small, elfin ears that added an otherworldly charm. She turned, sensing his gaze, and their eyes met across the void. Hers were violet storms, swirling with pain and unspoken pleas. In that instant, Elara felt something ignite, a spark not just of pity, but of connection, as if the universe had aligned two broken souls. "She's beautiful," he murmured to the queen, who stood beside him, her regal posture hiding a mother's anguish. "But beauty like that, it hides the real fight." Queen Elara nodded, her voice a melodic echo. "Many have said the same, human, and many have perished trying to save her." Elai's hand pressed against the glass, his modified nanites humming faintly in his veins. He knew the risks, one wrong move, and the curse would claim him too. But as Lyra approached the barrier, her hand mirroring his, a faint smile ghosted her lips, the first in years. It was a smile that promised worlds, dangers, and perhaps, impossibly, love amid the chaos. What Ailey didn't know yet was that his arrival would unravel more than just the nanites. It would spark a forbidden bond, one that blurred the lines between savior and lover, human and alien, in ways that could shatter empires or forge new ones. As the palace lights dimmed, signaling the approach of Zerathia's dual sunsets, Ailey stepped toward the isolation field, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and inexplicable desire. The unthinkable was about to begin. The air in the sanctum hummed with latent energy, as Ailey donned the protective suit provided by the Zerathians, a sleek, form-fitting armor that pulsed with blue veins of light, designed to repel the nanites for mere minutes. It felt alien against his skin, cool and invasive, like wearing someone else's secrets. He glanced back at the observation window, where Queen Elara watched with bated breath, her advisors murmuring doubts. A human? What could he possibly achieve where our best have failed? But Ailey pushed the thoughts aside. His mind raced back to Mia, her laughter echoing in his memories like a distant star's light. If he could save Lyra, perhaps he could redeem that loss. The isolation field parted with a soft hiss, and he stepped inside, the door sealing behind him like a final judgment. Lyra turned slowly, her violet eyes widening in surprise. Up close, she was even more mesmerizing. Her pale skin shimmered faintly, as if dusted with stardust, and her pointed ears twitched with curiosity. The gown she wore was a masterpiece of Zerathian craftsmanship, translucent layers that hinted at the swell of her breasts, and the curve of her thighs, elegant yet undeniably provocative, as if daring the viewer to look away. She tilted her head, studying him like a rare artifact. "You're different," she said, her voice a soft melody that carried an undercurrent of power, laced with the nanite's subtle buzz. Ellie swallowed, forcing a steady gaze. "Name's Ellie, from Earth. Heard you've got a bit of a tech problem." A faint laugh escaped her lips, surprising even her. It was the first sound of joy in that chamber for eons. A tech problem? That's one way to put it. Touch me, and you'll dissolve into nothing. Yet here you are, bold as a comet streaking through the void. He took a cautious step forward, his suit's sensors beeping warnings. The nanites in the air began to stir, invisible particles swarming like curious insects. Ailey could feel them probing, testing the barriers. "I've dealt with worse. Lost someone to something like this. Figured if I could tweak my own blood to fight it, maybe I can help you." Lyra's expression softened, a vulnerability cracking through her regal facade. She moved closer, her scent a mix of exotic flowers and ozone wafting toward him. "Tweak your blood? You humans are reckless." "Intriguing, but reckless." Her hand hovered near his arm, not quite touching, but close enough that static danced between them. The air grew thick, charged with more than just energy. There was an unspoken tension, a pull that made Ailey's pulse quicken. As they talked, Ailey explained his plan in simple terms, avoiding the jargon that might alienate her. He spoke of his hybrid nanites, how he'd fused them with human DNA to create a way to override destructive code with something adaptive, alive. Lyra listened, her eyes locked on his, leaning in as if drawn by an invisible thread. For the first time, someone wasn't treating her like a monster or a fragile relic. He saw her as a person, flawed and fierce. But the nanites weren't idle. A sudden surge rippled through her, her body arching as pain lanced across her features. She gasped, stumbling back, and a wave of destructive energy lashed out, cracking the floor beneath them. Ailey's suit sparked, alarms blaring. Instinctively, he reached out, grabbing her arm to steady her. The unthinkable contact. The world exploded in light. Nanites flooded him, tearing at his defenses, but his own modifications fought back, a symphony of microscopic battles raging in his veins. Lyra's eyes widened in horror. "No, you'll die," yet he didn't. The pain was excruciating, like fire in his blood, but he held on, his grip firm yet gentle. "Not today," he gritted out, his voice strained but resolute. As the storm subsided, something shifted. Their nanites intertwined, a fleeting merge that sent jolts of sensation through both visions of each other's memories flashing like shared dreams. Ailey saw glimpses of Lyra's isolated childhood, her longing for touch. She felt his grief for Mia, his unyielding determination. When it ended, they stood breathless, inches apart. Lyra's cheeks flushed a soft pink, her body trembling not from pain, but from the intimacy of that connection. What was that?" she whispered, her hand still on his arm, lingering longer than necessary. Ailey managed a wry smile, his heart racing for reasons beyond survival. "A start. But we're just getting warmed up." The palace outside buzzed with alarm, guards rushing to the field. But inside, in that charged silence, a bond had ignited, one that promised salvation, danger, and a desire neither could ignore. As Lyra's fingers traced his suit's edge, her touch tentative yet electric, Ailey knew this curse was about to unravel in ways no one could predict. Hours blurred into a tense vigil as Ailey worked tirelessly in the sanctum, his tools scattered across a makeshift workbench, salvaged from Zerathian tech. Lyra watched him with a mix of fascination and wariness, perched on a crystalline throne that seemed too grand for the intimate space. Her gown shifted with each movement, revealing subtle glimpses of her lithe form, but Ailey forced his focus on the task. The nanites in her system were ancient, adaptive predators, evolving faster than any code he'd encountered. His own hybrids buzzed in response, a constant reminder of the risk he carried. "Tell me more about your world," Lyra said softly, breaking the silence. Her voice had lost its earlier edge, replaced by a genuine curiosity. She leaned forward, her white hair tumbling over one shoulder, those elfin ears perking up like attentive sentinels. Ailey glanced up from his scanner, wiping sweat from his brow. "Earth. It's a mess of oceans and cities, people chasing dreams and dodging disasters. We don't have palaces like this, more like cramped apartments and endless traffic. But we've got heart. That's what keeps us going." She smiled, a genuine warmth lighting her features. "Heart, such a human concept. In Zerathia we value logic, power. But you bring chaos in the best way." Her eyes lingered on him, tracing the lines of his face, the strength in his shoulders. The air between them thickened again, that unspoken pull drawing them closer. As night fell, with Zerathia's moons casting silver beams through the dome, Ailey proposed the next step, a direct interface. He'd link his neural implant, a relic from his days on Titan, to her nanite network, allowing him to dive into the code. It was dangerous, intimate, like sharing minds. Lyra hesitated, her hand brushing his as she agreed. "If anyone can do this, it's you," she murmured, her touch sending shivers down his spine. The connection hit like a supernova. Ailey's vision blurred into a digital realm, where nanites danced like fireflies in a storm. He navigated the chaos, his human ingenuity clashing with the ancient malice. But amid the code, he felt Lyra's presence, warm, vibrant, wrapping around him like an embrace. Flashes of emotion surged, her loneliness, her desires unspoken. In return she glimpsed his past, his longing for connection. Back in reality, their bodies remained close, hands clasped. Lyra's breath quickened, her body responding to the merge. "Ailey, I feel you," she whispered, her free hand resting on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. The moment stretched, charged with erotic tension, their minds entwined, bodies yearning for more. Just as the interface stabilized, an alarm pierced the air. The nanites rebelled, surging through Lyra in a violent wave. She cried out, collapsing into his arms, her form pressing against him in a tangle of limbs and fabric. Ailey held her, his hybrids countering the assault, but the closeness ignited something deeper. Her lips brushed his neck accidentally, a spark that made them both freeze. In that vulnerable instant, desire bloomed. Lyra pulled back slightly, her violet eyes dark with need. "This curse, it's not just destroying me, it's keeping me from living." Her fingers traced his jaw, tentative yet bold. Ailey's resolve wavered, his own longing mirroring hers. "We can fight it together," he said, his voice husky. As their lips met in a tentative kiss, soft at first, then deepening with the urgency of two souls starved for touch, the nanites quieted, as if sensing the power of that human connection. It was a kiss that tasted of stars and salvation, promising more in the shadows of the sanctum. But outside, the Empire stirred. Queen Elara's spies reported the anomaly, and whispers of a human taming the untamable spread like wildfire. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of a love that could reshape the stars. As the whispers of Ailey's improbable success slithered through the palace corridors like shadows at dusk, the air in the sanctum grew heavier, laced with an electric anticipation that neither could ignore. Lyra pulled away from the kiss slowly, her violet eyes searching his, a storm of emotions swirling within them, fear, wonder, and something far more primal. Her lips, soft and tasting faintly of the exotic nectar that Zerathians favored, lingered in his memory, igniting a fire that spread through his veins hotter than any nanite surge. Ella's breath came in ragged bursts, his hands still resting on her waist, feeling the warmth of her body through the thin, shimmering fabric of her gown. It clung to her like a second skin, accentuating every curve, every subtle shift as she moved, and in that moment, he was acutely aware of how her form pressed against him. Inviting yet dangerous. "You shouldn't have done that," she murmured, her voice a husky whisper that sent shivers down his spine. But there was no regret in her tone, only a deepening curiosity, as if the contact had awakened parts of her long dormant under the curse's grip. Her pointed ears flushed a delicate pink, a telltale sign of arousal in her species, and she didn't step back, instead leaning into him slightly, her full breasts brushing his chest in a way that made his pulse thunder. Ellie chuckled softly, a low rumble that masked the turmoil inside him. "Shouldn't have. Princess, I've been doing the impossible since I walked in here. What's one more risk?" His fingers traced the edge of her gown's neckline absent-mindedly, the material so fine it felt like silk woven from moonlight. He could sense the nanites humming between them, no longer a barrier but a bridge, their shared code pulsing in sync. It was intoxicating, this merge not just technological, but deeply personal, as if their very essences were intertwining. Lyra's hand slid up his arm, exploring the contours of his muscles beneath the suit, her touch light yet insistent. "Humans, you're so warm, so alive. In Zerathia we control everything, emotions, desires. But you make me feel out of control." She tilted her head, her white hair cascading over one shoulder, exposing the graceful line of her neck. The room's lights dimmed automatically with the setting moons, casting a soft, intimate glow that highlighted the glow of her pale skin, making her seem almost luminous. The suspense built like a gathering storm as Ela guided her to a nearby alcove, a recessed area lined with soft, glowing cushions meant for meditation but now serving a far more urgent purpose. He needed to monitor the interface, to ensure the nanites didn't rebel again, but his mind wandered to the way her hips swayed as she followed him, the gown riding up slightly to reveal the smooth expanse of her thighs. "Sit," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "I need to check the link. Make sure it's stable." She complied, lowering herself gracefully, but as she did, she pulled him down with her, their bodies close in the confined space. The cushions yielded under their weight, molding to them like a lover's embrace. Lyra's legs brushed against his, a deliberate accident that sent sparks racing through him. "Check it then," she challenged, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "But don't pretend this is just about the code, Ely. I felt you in there, your thoughts, your wants." He activated the neural link again, a subtle hum filling the air as data streams flowed between them. But this time, it was different, the connection deepened, pulling erotic visions to the surface. Ely glimpsed fragments of her fantasy's lonely nights where she imagined touch without destruction, a partner who could withstand her power. In turn, she saw his memories of lost intimacy, the raw hunger of a man who'd buried his desires under grief. The shared vulnerability heightened everything, turning the technical procedure into something profoundly sensual. Lyra gasped as the link intensified, her body arching slightly, pressing her curves against him. "It's overwhelming," she breathed, her hand finding his thigh, fingers digging in just enough to tease. The gown's fabric shifted, revealing more of her décolletage, the swell of her breasts rising and falling with each quickened breath. Ela's free hand moved of its own accord, cupping her cheek, his thumb brushing her lower lip. The contact sent a jolt through the nanites, a feedback loop that amplified their sensations, making every touch feel amplified electric. "Tell me to stop," he whispered, though he prayed she wouldn't. The air thickened with suspense, the palace outside forgotten as alarms faintly beaten the distance warnings from the Queen's monitors, perhaps, but neither cared. Lyra's response was to lean in, her lips capturing his in a deeper kiss, one that explored with tentative passion. Her tongue danced against his, tasting of forbidden fruits, and her body molded to him, her hips shifting in a subtle grind that left no doubt about her arousal. Elie's hands roamed, sliding down her back to the small of her waist, pulling her closer. The gown was a tease, its material parting easily under his touch, exposing the soft, warm skin beneath. She was exquisite, her body a blend of alien grace and human-like allure, with those small, pointed ears that he couldn't resist tracing with his fingers, eliciting a soft moan from her. "Ely," she murmured against his mouth, her voice laced with need. The erotic tension coiled tighter, each caress building suspense, as if at any moment the nanites could surge and tear them apart or bind them forever. He broke the kiss briefly, trailing his lips down her neck, savoring the way she shivered. "You're incredible," he growled, his voice thick with desire. Stronger than any curse. His hand ventured lower, skimming the curve of her hip, feeling the heat radiating from her. Lyra's fingers worked at his suit's fastenings, eager to feel his skin, her movements urgent yet graceful. The sanctum's atmosphere hummed with their shared energy, the nanites now allies in this dance, enhancing every sensation until it bordered on ecstasy. But beneath the passion, suspense lingered like a shadow. Ellie felt a subtle shift in the code, a whisper of resistance from the ancient nanites, testing their bond. Would it hold? Or would this intimacy trigger a catastrophe? Lyra sensed it too, her eyes meeting his with a mix of lust and fear. "Don't stop," she pleaded, her body pressing insistently against him, her thighs parting slightly in invitation. The erotic pull was irresistible, drawing them deeper into the unknown. As clothes began to fall away, his suit peeling off to reveal the hard lines of his human form, her gown slipping to pool at her feet, like liquid silver, Eileen marveled at her beauty. Her pale skin glowed in the moonlight, her figure a vision of sensuality, full breasts with nipples hardening under his gaze, a narrow waist flaring into hips that begged to be gripped, and those elfin ears framing a face flushed with desire. She was a goddess, and he, a mere mortal, was about to worship her. Their bodies intertwined on the cushions, skin against skin, the contact sending waves of pleasure through the neural link. Lyra's hands explored him boldly, tracing the scars from his past battles, her touch igniting fires wherever it went. "Humans are so tactile," she whispered, her voice breaking as his lips found her breast, teasing the sensitive peak with his tongue. She arched into him, a soft cry escaping her lips, the sound echoing in the chamber like a siren's call. The suspense built with every movement, their rhythms syncing as the nanites amplified their connection. Illa's fingers delved between her thighs, finding her wet and ready, her body responding with a fervor that matched his own. "Yes," she gasped, her hips bucking against his hand, the erotic dance pushing them toward the edge. He positioned himself above her, their eyes locked, the moment hanging in delicious tension. Would this union seal their fate or shatter it? As he entered her slowly, the world narrowed to just them, the slide of bodies, the gasp of pleasure, the building crescendo that promised release. Lyra's nails dug into his back, her legs wrapping around him, pulling him deeper. The nanites surged in harmony, turning pain into bliss, isolation into unity. It was erotic beyond words, a fusion of flesh and code, human grit and alien grace. Yet, even in the throes of passion, the shadow of uncertainty loomed. A distant rumble shook the palace, perhaps the queen's forces mobilizing, or the curse fighting back. But for now, they lost themselves in each other, the suspense only heightening the ecstasy, as Ely thrust deeper, drawing moans from Lyra that filled the sanctum with raw, unfiltered desire. Their climax built like a supernova, bodies moving in perfect sync, until it crashed over them in waves. Lyra cried out, her body clenching around him, the neural link exploding with shared sensations that left them both trembling. In the aftermath, they lay entwined, breaths mingling, the air thick with the scent of their union. But as peace settled, a new alert flickered in Ila's mind. The nanites were evolving, adapting in ways he hadn't anticipated. What had they unleashed? The night stretched on, their bodies still humming with aftershocks. But the Empire's eyes were upon them now, and the true test was just beginning. As the first hints of Zerathia's dawn filtered through the sanctum's dome, painting the chamber in hues of rose and gold, Ely and Lyra lay tangled in each other's arms, their skin still slick with the remnants of their passion. The afterglow wrapped around them like a fragile cocoon, but beneath it, a restless energy stirred. The nanites, now fully intertwined between their systems, pulsed with a life of their own. Ely could feel it in his blood, a subtle vibration that whispered of changes unfolding, secrets unraveling in the microscopic depths. Lyra nestled closer, her head on his chest, her white hair splayed like a silken veil, but her violet eyes flickered open, sensing the shift before he could voice it. "Something's happening," she whispered, her voice laced with a mix of awe and trepidation. Her hand trailed down his abdomen, fingers lingering on the scars that mapped his human resilience, but her touch now carried an undercurrent of urgency. The gown she'd discarded earlier lay forgotten on the floor, her body exposed in all its ethereal glory, pale curves, glowing in the morning light, those delicate pointed ears twitching as if attuned to invisible frequencies. Ellie propped himself up on one elbow, his gaze sweeping over her, still marveling at the impossible beauty before him, yet his technician's instincts screamed warnings. The neural link flared to life unbidden, flooding his mind with data streams that danced like firestorms. "The code, it's rewriting itself," he muttered, his brow furrowing as he deciphered the chaos. What had started as a simple hack was evolving into something profound, a symbiosis that blurred the lines between curse and cure. But as he delved deeper, a thrilling dread crept in, a realization that this wasn't just healing, it was transformation. Lyra sat up abruptly, her full breasts heaving with quickened breaths, her body tensing as the nanites surged within her. "Ely, I see it too. Vision's futures branching like star paths. But one path darkens everything." Before he could respond, the sanctum shook with a violent tremor, the crystal walls cracking like thunder in a storm. Alarms blared from hidden speakers, red lights pulsing in rhythmic fury. Queen Elara's voice echoed through the chamber, distorted by urgency. "Lyra, the palace defenses are failing, the nanites are spreading." Guards burst through the isolation field, their luminous armor humming with energy weapons drawn, but they froze at the sight of the entwined pair, shock rippling across their alien features. Ely scrambled to his feet, pulling Lyra with him, his naked form a stark contrast to their armored might. "Stay back," he shouted, but it was too late. The nanites, amplified by their union, erupted in a spectacular wave. The air ignited with dramatic fury, tendrils of blue energy lashing out like living whips, coiling around the guards and hurling them against the walls. Lyra gasped, her eyes widening in horror and exhilaration, as she realized she controlled it, not the curse, but a new power born from their bond. "It's me, us," she breathed, extending a hand experimentally. A bolt of energy arced from her fingertips, shattering a nearby console in a shower of sparks. The thrill of it coursed through Ali via the link, his own body humming with borrowed strength, muscles tensing as if he could bend steel. But curiosity gnawed at him. What had they unleashed? Was this salvation or a weapon that could doom Zerathia? Outside, the palace descended into chaos. Reports flooded in through the Queen's comms. The nanites had breached containment, infecting the Empire's core systems, power grids flickering, ships in orbit stalling mid-maneuver. Queen Elara stormed into the sanctum, her regal robes swirling like a tempest, flanked by elite warriors whose pointed ears mirrored Lyra's but lacked her vulnerability. "What have you done, human?" she demanded, her voice a blade of ice. Her eyes darted to her daughter, taking in the disheveled intimacy, a flicker of surprise crossing her features before hardening into resolve. Ely stepped forward, shielding Lyra instinctively, his voice steady amid the storm. "We didn't break her, we fixed her. But the ancient code, it's awakening something bigger." As if to punctuate his words, the ground quaked again, and through the dome, they saw it, a massive rift tearing open in the sky, a swirling vortex of nanite-infused energy that pulled at the atmosphere like a hungry maw. Ships from the royal fleet dove toward it, lasers firing in desperate salvos, but the anomaly swallowed them whole, their hulls disintegrating in brilliant explosions. Lyra clutched Ayla's arm, her nails digging in, but her face lit with a curious fire. The legends, the nanites were weapons from the old wars, guardians of forgotten gates. "We've unlocked one." The revelation hit like a thunderclap, thrilling, terrifying. This wasn't just a personal curse, it was a key to an interdimensional portal, a relic that could summon allies or invaders from realms beyond. Queen Elara's advisors scrambled, holographic displays erupting around them, mapping the anomaly's growth. "It's expanding," one cried. "If it reaches the capital spires, Zerathia falls." In a surge of dramatic heroism, Ely grabbed a discarded energy rifle from a fallen guard, its grip alien in his hands but familiar in purpose. "We have to close it from the inside." Lyra's eyes met his, a silent understanding passing between them. She nodded, slipping into a spare robe that hugged her form like battle armor, its fabric shifting to reveal tactical slits for movement. Together they raced toward the palace hangar, the Queen's forces parting in stunned deference. Explosions rocked the corridors, debris raining down as the rift's pull intensified, curios objects, crystals, tapestries whirling into the air like leaves in a gale. The hangar was a maelstrom, pilots abandoning ships, technicians fleeing as nanite swarms corrupted engines. Ely and Lyra commandeered a sleek fighter, its cockpit barely fitting too, their bodies pressed close in the confined space, a reminder of their earlier intimacy amid the peril. As they launched, the ship bucked against the anomaly's gravity, thrusters screaming in protest. "Hold on," Ely yelled, his hands flying over controls adapted to his human interface via the link. Lyra channeled her power, stabilizing the craft with bursts of energy, her face a mask of concentration and fierce beauty. The rift loomed ahead, a yawning abyss crackling with lightning, promising oblivion or revelation. Thrilling speed propelled them forward, the ship's hull groaning under the strain. Inside the vortex, reality-warped stars stretched into streaks, time dilating in curious loops. Visions assaulted them, glimpses of alternate Zerathias, where the curse had won, empires crumbled to dust, others where humans and aliens coexisted in harmony. But a surprising shadow emerged, a colossal entity, an ancient AI guardian manifested as a swirling colossus of light and code, awakening after eons. "You dare intrude?" Its voice boomed in their minds, a thunderous echo that shook their souls. The guardian lashed out, digital tentacles slamming into their ship, sparks flying as shields buckled. Ely evaded with human ingenuity, barrel rolling through the chaos, while Lyra countered with nanite blasts, her power amplified by their bond. "It's testing us," she cried, her voice thrilling with discovery. The battle climaxed in a frenzy of light and shadow, the ship spinning wildly as they dove toward the core, a pulsating heart of pure code. In a surprising twist, Ely realized the truth: the Guardian wasn't hostile, it was lonely, a relic seeking a worthy heir. "Merge with it," he urged Lyra, their link conveying the intuition. She hesitated, eyes wide with curiosity, then extended her essence through the nanites. The entity recoiled, then embraced, flooding them with knowledge, secrets of the universe, lost technologies, paths to peace. But the merge demanded sacrifice, Eala's human nanites as the bridge, risking his life. As the core detonated in a blaze of energy, the rift began to collapse, pulling them back. Lyra screamed his name, her hand gripping his as reality snapped into focus. They ejected just in time, tumbling through the sky as the anomaly sealed with a final, dramatic implosion. Below, Zerathia stabilized, the nanites retreating like a receding tide. But as they plummeted, parachutes deploying in a whisper of fabric, Ely felt a curious emptiness. The merge had taken something from him, a piece of his humanity now woven into the stars. They landed amid cheers from gathering crowds, Queen Elara rushing forward, her face a whirlwind of relief and astonishment. Lyra pulled Ely close, her body trembling against his, but her eyes held a surprising spark. "You did it," she whispered, lips brushing his ear. Yet in the triumph, a thrilling undercurrent lingered. What other gates had they opened? The Empire celebrated, but in the shadows of the spires, new signals flickered from distant realms, curious whispers of alliances or invasions. The climax had passed, but the drama was far from over, curiosity burning brighter than ever in their shared gaze. As the cheers of the Zerathian crowds swelled around them like a tidal wave crashing against the palace grounds, Ely and Lyra stood amidst the throng, their hands still clasped in a grip that spoke volumes of the bond they'd forged in the heart of chaos. Dust settled from the rift's implosion, coating everything in a fine, shimmering layer that caught the sunlight like scattered diamonds, but Eli's mind raced ahead, piecing together the fragments of what they'd just unleashed. Lyra's whisper lingered in his ear, her breath warm against his skin, but before he could respond, Queen Elara swept upon them like a force of nature, her advisors trailing in a flurry of robes and holographic pads. Her eyes, sharp as laser sights, flicked between her daughter and the human interloper, registering the intimate proximity with a raised eyebrow that could have frozen a supernova. "Lyra, my child," the queen said, her voice booming with a mix of maternal relief and imperial command, pulling her daughter into an embrace that somehow managed to wedge Ela out of the picture. But Lyra didn't fully let go of his hand, her fingers lingering in a subtle tug-of-war that made Ela feel like a prized exhibit in a galactic zoo. The crowd's roars intensified, warriors clanging their energy staffs, civilians waving luminous banners, but up close, the drama thickened like syrup in zero gravity. Elara's gaze zeroed in on Ely, appraising him from his tousled hair down to his borrowed robe, which hung awkwardly on his human frame, the fabric bunching in places that made him shift uncomfortably. "And you, Earthling. You've succeeded where empires have faltered, but at what cost?" Ely cleared his throat, trying to muster some dignity while feeling painfully exposed amid the alien pomp. Your Majesty, we closed the gate, but the nanites, they're not just a curse anymore. They're evolving. We saw things in there, visions of other realms reaching out. He glanced at Lyra for support, but she was busy smoothing her robe, which clung to her sweat-dampened curves, in a way that drew more than a few lingering stares from the guards. Her pale skin flushed under the attention, those delicate pointed ears twitching as if picking up on the undercurrents of gossip already rippling through the assembly. The awkwardness hit him like a poorly timed hyperspace jump. Here he was, a scruffy technician from Earth's backwaters, standing half-dressed before royalty, having just saved the day and possibly complicated it further. Before Elara could probe deeper, a holographic alert blared from one advisor's device, projecting a swarm of incoming signals, flickering lights dancing across the sky like mischievous fireflies. Incoming transmissions from the Veil Nebula, Your Highness, the advisor stammered, his voice cracking under the pressure. They're invitations. Or threats. The translations are garbled, but they mention the awakened bridge, something about alliances forged in code. The crowd hushed, the drama escalating as murmurs spread. Was this peace or prelude to war? Ayla's stomach nodded. The Guardian's merge had indeed opened doors, but who or what was knocking? Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding despite the disheveled state of her attire, the robe slipping slightly off one shoulder to reveal the graceful swell of her collarbone. Mother, it's not a threat, it's opportunity. The nanites showed us paths to unity. But even as she spoke, a fresh surge rippled through her, her body glowing faintly as the evolved code asserted itself. She winced, clutching Eli's arm for stability, and in that moment, the Queen's eyes narrowed, piecing together the intimacy that went beyond mere alliance. You two shared more than strategy, didn't you? Elara's tone dripped with dramatic implication, her advisors gasping in unison like a poorly rehearsed chorus. Ely felt heat rush to his face, the awkward situation ballooning into full-blown farce. Well, Your Majesty? In the heat of the moment, literally, with the nanites linking us, it kind of happened. He rubbed the back of his neck, wishing for a black hole to swallow him whole. Lyra shot him a look that was equal parts amusement and exasperation, her violet eyes sparkling with a hint of humor amid the tension. Ely means we formed a symbiotic connection, she clarified, but her lips twitched into a sly smile, betraying the double entendre. The Queen's expression shifted from stern to stunned, her pointed ears flattening slightly in what Ellie guessed was the Zerathian equivalent of a facebomb. To heighten the drama, a squadron of royal drones buzzed overhead, broadcasting the scene live across the Empire. Every awkward shuffle, every lingering glance amplified for billions. Ely caught his reflection in a nearby crystal panel, robe askew, hair wild, looking less like a hero and more like a guy who'd just rolled out of a cosmic tumble dryer. Great, he muttered under his breath. Now the whole galaxy knows I saved the princess and possibly scandalized her. Lyra stifled a laugh, the sound bubbling up like champagne in AOG, adding a light touch to the mounting pressure. Humans and their modesty, she teased, leaning in close enough that her scent ozone and wildflowers enveloped him again. In Zerathia, such bonds are celebrated, though usually with more ceremony. But the humor evaporated as the signals intensified, the holographic display erupting into a cacophony of alien dialects. One transmission clarified a fleet from the Netherian collective, long-lost rivals thought extinct, was en route, hailing the human catalyst as a harbinger of renewal or conquest. Elara's face paled, the drama reaching fever pitch. They've been waiting for this gate to open. Ely, your actions have summoned ghosts from our past. Guards mobilized, energy shields humming to life around the palace, while civilians scattered in organized panic, their cheers turning to urgent whispers. Ely's mind whirled, the awkwardness of the personal revelation clashing with the galactic stakes. Wait, so I'm the reason an ancient enemy is knocking? Talk about a bad first impression. He tried for levity, but his voice cracked, underscoring the thrill of impending doom. Lyra squeezed his hand, her touch a grounding force amid the chaos, her body pressing against his side in a way that was both comforting and distractingly sensual, the robe's fabric whispering against his skin. We'll face them together, she said, her voice steady, but her eyes betrayed a curious excitement, as if the drama fueled her. As the Queen barked orders, summoning the War Council, an unexpected twist added fuel to the fire. Ely's neural link pinged with a private message from the Guardian's remnant, embedded in his nanites. The Nithurians seek not war, but union through you. The words flashed in his mind, accompanied by visions of interspecies pacts sealed in intimate rituals. He choked on air, the awkwardness peaking as he realized the catalyst role might involve more than tech hacks. Elara, he whispered, pulling her aside amid the frenzy, we might have to demonstrate our bond. Publicly. Her eyes widened, a blush creeping across her pale cheeks, but then she burst into laughter, a genuine, melodic peal that cut through the tension like a laser through fog. You mean in front of the Empire? Oh, Ely, humans are so adorably prudish. In Zerathia, that's called a coronation. The humor in her tone lightened the drama, but the implication hung heavy, stirring a mix of dread and intrigue in his chest. The council chamber loomed as they were ushered inside, opulent walls alive with strategic holograms depicting the approaching fleet, massive ships shaped like crystalline serpents, gliding through the stars with ominous grace. Elara presided at the head, her advisors debating furiously strike first or parley. Ely and Lyra were seated, or rather, thrust into ornate thrones side by side, their proximity drawing sidelong glances that amplified the awkward undercurrents. One advisor, a stern-faced elder with ears like sharpened daggers, leaned in. The human must explain this catalyst phenomenon. Our scans show your nanites are intertwined in ways unbecoming of royalty. Ely shifted, the throne's cushions feeling like judgmental eyes on his back. Look, it's not like we planned a interstellar booty call. The merge happened to save your world. The room fell silent, then erupted in confused murmurs, Zerathians exchanging puzzled looks at the human slang. Lyra covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with suppressed giggles. Booty call? Yle, you're incorrigible. Her hand found his under the table, fingers interlacing in a secret show of solidarity, her touch sending sparks that reminded him of their earlier passion, now laced with the drama of public scrutiny. As debates raged, the fleet's lead ship hailed them directly, its commander a towering Nithurian with skin like molten silver appearing in hologram form. We come for the awakened pair, it intoned, voice echoing like thunder in a cavern. The human and the princess must prove their bond to seal the pact. Failure means assimilation. The drama crested, the room gasping as implications dawned, a ritual trial, perhaps involving shared visions or physical demonstrations. Ely's face burned, the awkwardness hilarious in its absurdity. Prove it, like, with witnesses? This is worse than my high school prom disaster. Lyra leaned close, her breath tickling his ear. Think of it as an adventure, my bold earthling. Besides, you've already conquered me once. Her words, delivered with a wink, injected humor into the tension, but her eyes held a dramatic fire, promising that whatever came next would test them to their cores. Outside, the crowds gathered, chanting for their saviors, unaware of the intimate stakes. Ely stole a glance at Lyra, her profile radiant in the holographic glow, hair like fresh snow, body a symphony of grace and allure beneath the robe. The drama heightened with every passing second, awkward situations piling like misfired asteroids, but a thread of humor wove through it all, binding them tighter. As the Nithurian ship docked with a resounding boom, Ely braced for the unknown, his heart pounding not just with fear, but with the exhilarating pull of a love that spanned stars. The council adjourned in haste, escorts leading them to preparation chambers, where attendants swarmed, dressing them in ceremonial garb that felt both regal and ridiculous. Ilay's outfit, a form-fitting suit of iridescent scales that hugged his frame in ways that made him walk funny, while Lyra's new gown accentuated her curves with flowing panels that teased and revealed in equal measure. You look majestic, she said, biting her lip to stifle laughter at his discomfort. Like a fish out of water, literally. Thanks, he grumbled, adjusting the collar that seemed intent on choking him. Nothing says galactic hero like feeling like I'm in a bad cosplay. But as their eyes met, the humor softened the edges of dread, and they shared a quiet moment amid the bustle, hands brushing in promise. The approaching ritual loomed, a blend of drama and absurdity that could either unite empires or unravel everything. As they stepped toward the grand hall, where Nithurian delegates awaited with enigmatic smiles, the air crackled with anticipation. Whispers followed them, speculation about the proof required, bets placed on the human's endurance. Ely whispered to Lyra, if this involves dancing, I'm out. 2 left feet, remember? She chuckled, the sound a beacon in the storm. But her grip tightened as the doors opened, revealing a chamber transformed into an arena of lights and shadows, the stage set for their most awkward performance yet. The Nithurian commander bowed low, its silver skin rippling. The trial begins. Share your essence or face the void. Drama pulsed like a heartbeat, awkwardness wrapping around them like vines, but Ely met Lyra's gaze with a grin. Well, princess, ready to show them what humans are made of. Her reply was a kiss swift, defiant that drew gasps and cheers, injecting humor into the high stakes as the ritual ignited, pulling them into a whirlwind of light where bonds would be tested, secrets revealed, and laughter might just be the ultimate weapon. As the whirlwind of light enveloped them, drawing Ely and Lyra into the heart of the ritual chamber, the air shimmered with an otherworldly energy that made every nerve-ending tingle with anticipation. The Nithurian delegates formed a circle around the elevated platform, their silver forms glowing faintly as they chanted in low, resonant tones, weaving a veil of privacy that blurred the boundaries between public spectacle and intimate sanctuary. Ely's ceremonial suit felt constricting yet oddly sensual against his skin, the scales shifting like a living caress, while Lyra's gown flowed around her like liquid starlight, accentuating the elegant lines of her body, her pale skin luminous, her white hair cascading in waves that begged to be touched. Her violet eyes locked onto his, a mix of determination and desire burning within them, and in that gaze the awkwardness of the moment transformed into something profoundly electric. Well, if this is how we save the galaxy, Ely murmured against her lips, deepening the kiss she'd initiated, his hands finding the small of her back to pull her closer. The defiant spark in her response ignited a fire that spread through him, turning the high-stakes trial into a private dance of connection. Lyra's body molded to his, her curves pressing against him in a way that sent waves of warmth radiating outward, her pointed ears brushing his cheek as she tilted her head, inviting him deeper. The chants around them faded into a rhythmic hum, like a heartbeat shared between worlds, heightening the intimacy as the ritual's energy amplified their nanite bond, making every touch feel like a spark of eternity. She guided him toward the platform's center, where soft, glowing cushions awaited like an invitation from the stars themselves. Ely's fingers traced the edges of her gown, the fabric parting easily under his touch, revealing the smooth expanse of her skin that glowed with an inner light. Lyra's breath hitched as she helped him shed his suit, her hands exploring the contours of his chest, the firmness of his muscles earned from years of human perseverance. In Zerathia, sharing essence means bearing souls, she whispered, her voice a sultry melody that wrapped around him. But with you, it's so much more alive. Her lips trailed down his neck, leaving a trail of gentle kisses that made him shiver, the sensation amplified by their linked nanites, turning simple contact into a symphony of shared pleasure. Ely lifted her gently, laying her back against the cushions, his eyes drinking in the sight of her, her full form arched slightly in invitation, her thighs parting just enough to draw him in. He leaned over her, capturing her mouth again in a kiss that grew more urgent, tongues dancing in a rhythm that mirrored the pulsing energy around them. His hands roamed her body with reverence, cupping the softness of her breasts, thumbs circling the sensitive peaks until she gasped softly, her back bowing toward him. The warmth between them built like a gathering storm, Lyra's fingers weaving into his hair, pulling him closer as she wrapped her legs around his waist, the friction of their bodies igniting sparks that danced along their skin. The ritual's light intensified, bathing them in a soft, ethereal glow that made every movement feel sacred yet profoundly passionate. Ella's lips moved lower, tracing a path down her collarbone to the curve of her breast, his mouth enclosing the tender flesh with a gentleness that belied the fire raging inside him. Lyra moaned quietly, the sound vibrating through their connection, encouraging him as her hands slid down his back, nails grazing lightly in a way that sent jolts of electricity through his veins. Ely, yes, she breathed, her body responding to his every caress, hips rising to meet his touch as he explored further, his fingers finding the warm, inviting center of her desire. She was exquisite in her responsiveness, her pale skin flushing with a rosy hue that made her seem even more alive, more human in her vulnerability. Ely took his time, savoring the way she trembled under his ministrations, his mouth and hands working in harmony to build her pleasure layer by layer. The nanites hummed in approval, enhancing the sensations until it felt like they were one entity, lost in a sea of mutual bliss. Lyra's hands guided him, urging him upward until their bodies aligned perfectly, her eyes meeting his in a silent plea that needed no words. With a slow, deliberate motion, he entered her, the connection deep and fulfilling, drawing a shared sigh that echoed through the chamber. Their movements synced effortlessly, a gentle rocking that grew in intensity, bodies moving as one in a dance of unity and passion. Lyra's legs tightened around him, her hips meeting his thrusts with equal fervor, the friction building a delicious tension that coiled tighter with each passing moment. Ila's hands gripped her waist, steadying them as waves of pleasure washed over him, her inner warmth enveloping him completely. She arched into him, her breaths coming in soft, rhythmic gasps, her pointed ears flushing deeper as ecstasy approached. The energy around them pulsed in time with their rhythm, the ritual's power weaving their essences together, turning physical union into something transcendent. As the crescendo built, Lyra's fingers dug into his shoulders, her body clenching around him in waves that pulled him deeper into the abyss of sensation. Together, she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion, and Ela felt the peak rush toward them like a comet streaking across the sky. They reached it in unison, a shared release that exploded through their linked minds and bodies, leaving them trembling in each other's arms, breaths mingling as the aftershocks rippled outward. The light around them softened, the chants reaching a harmonious close, as if the universe itself approved of their bond. In the quiet that followed, Lyra nestled against him, her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, a human rhythm that grounded her amid the stars. Ellie held her close, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her back, the intimacy of the moment lingering like a warm embrace. But even in this peace, the nanites whispered of more to come, subtle hints of evolving power that stirred curiosity in his mind. The Nethurians nodded in silent acknowledgement, the pact sealed not just by words, but by the profound connection they'd witnessed. Yet, as the chamber's doors began to open, admitting Queen Elara and her entourage, Ely couldn't shake the feeling that this ritual had unlocked doors beyond Alliance's personal revelations that would test their love in ways yet unseen. Lyra lifted her head, her violet eyes sparkling with a mix of satisfaction and mischief. "That was extraordinary," she said softly, pressing a gentle kiss to his lips. The drama of the Empire awaited outside, but for now, in this stolen interlude, they were simply two souls intertwined, ready to face whatever came next with the strength of their shared essence. The Queen's arrival brought a rush of activity, attendants draping them in fresh robes that whispered against their sensitized skin. But Ely and Lyra moved with a newfound grace, their bond evident in every glance and touch. Elara's expression was a complex tapestry: pride, concern, and a hint of envy for the freedom her daughter had found. "The pact is forged," she announced to the assembled delegates, her voice carrying across the hall. Zerathia and Netheria stand united. Cheers erupted, but Ellie's focus remained on Lyra, her hand in his, a promise of more intimate moments to come, away from the eyes of empires. As celebrations commenced, with feasts materializing in holographic splendor and music filling the air like a cosmic symphony, Ely pulled Lyra aside to a secluded alcove. "We did it," he murmured, his arms encircling her waist, drawing her close once more. She melted into him, her body fitting perfectly against his, the memory of their union still fresh and stirring. "And we'll do it again," she replied with a teasing smile, her fingers tracing his jaw. The night stretched ahead, filled with possibilities, but their connection forged in passion and power felt unbreakable, a beacon guiding them through the stars. Whispers of further trials reached them, hints of other realms responding to the awakened gate, but in that moment, Ely and Lyra chose to savor the quiet intimacy, their bodies and hearts aligned in perfect harmony. The adventure continued, but so did their love, deepening with every shared breath. As whispers of further trials echoed faintly in the grand hall beyond their secluded alcove, Ely and Lyra lingered in the warmth of their shared glow, the feast's music a distant melody that seemed to pulse in time with their steady breaths. Her fingers traced idle patterns on his chest, the soft fabric of their robes a thin barrier against the lingering heat of their connection, and Ile felt a profound peace settle over him, a rare calm in the storm of galactic intrigue. Lyra's violet eyes met his, soft with affection, her white hair tousled in a way that made her look less like a princess, and more like the woman who'd captured his heart amid chaos. Whatever comes next, she murmured, leaning in for another gentle kiss, we face it as one. The kiss deepened naturally, a reaffirmation of the bond that had sealed empires, but as their lips parted, a subtle hum stirred within Elara, the nanites, ever present, flickering to life with an unbidden surge. At first he dismissed it as an after-effect of the ritual, a residual echo of their intimacy, but the vibration intensified, pulling at his mind like an insistent tide. Visions flickered at the edges of his consciousness, not the shared memories he'd grown accustomed to, but something sharper, more insistent, like fragments of a puzzle forcing themselves into place. Elara sensed it too, her body tensing against his, her pointed ears perking up as if catching a distant signal. "Eli, what is it?" she asked, her voice laced with concern, but before he could answer, the nanites overwhelmed him, flooding his senses with a torrent of data that reshaped everything he thought he knew. In the blink of an eye, the alcove dissolved into a whirlwind of images, not prophecies or echoes, but raw, unaltered records buried deep in the ancient code. Elara saw his own past unraveling like a frayed thread, the accident on Titan Station, Mia's tiny form racked by experimental nanites, her cries echoing in sterile labs. But this time, the vision peeled back layers he'd never questioned. The corporate mishap wasn't random, it was orchestrated. Flashes revealed shadowy figures, human scientists colluding with Zerathian exiles, smuggling alien tech to Earth under the guise of innovation. Mia hadn't died, her body had been a vessel, the nanites transforming her into a conduit, phasing her out of reality to a hidden realm where she waited, alive but trapped, her essence calling out across the void. Eli gasped, pulling back from Elara, his eyes wide with shock as the truth crystallized. "Mia, she's alive," he whispered, the words tumbling out in disbelief. But the twist deepened, a knife-edge revelation that twisted his gut. The nanites in his blood, the ones he'd modified himself, weren't his creation at all. They'd been implanted in him as a child, a sleeper program designed by a secret human-alien alliance to bridge worlds. His entire life, the grief, the isolation, his journey to Zerathia had been engineered, a long-game ploy to awaken the gate. And the most shattering part. Queen Elara had known all along. The visions showed her younger self, in clandestine meetings with Earth operatives, her regal features set in calculated ambition. She'd cursed Elara not out of malice, but as bait, ensuring the human catalyst would arrive to complete the circuit. Lyra's face paled, her hands clutching his arms as the shared link forced the truths into her mind too. No mother wouldn't, she stammered, but the evidence was irrefutable, streaming through them like a digital confession. The Queen hadn't sought a cure. She'd architected the crisis to summon the Nithurians, not as allies, but as pawns in her bid for ultimate power control over the interdimensional gates that could dominate galaxies. Elara's arrival, their bond, the ritual, it was all part of her design, a symphony of manipulation where love was the unwitting key. But the powerful twist that left Elara reeling was personal. Mia wasn't just alive, she was the original hybrid, the first bridge, and to free her from the realm, Elara would have to sever his nanite link with Elara, potentially erasing their connection forever. The alcove spun as Elara staggered back, the weight of betrayal crashing down. "All this time I was a tool," he muttered, his voice breaking, the humor and passion of moments ago shattered by this unforeseen reversal. Elara reached for him, tears glistening in her eyes, her body trembling with the shock of her mother's duplicity. "Elara, we can fight this together," she pleaded, but the nanites pulsed again, revealing one final surprising layer. Mia's voice, faint but clear, echoing through the link. "Daddy, help me." It was a call that pierced his soul, forcing a choice between the daughter he'd mourned and the love he'd found among the stars. Chaos erupted outside as if the universe sensed the upheaval, the feast's music cutting off abruptly, replaced by alarms blaring through the palace. Queen Elara's voice boomed over the comms, calm yet commanding, "Secure the gates, our new era begins." But Elara and Elara knew the truth now, the new era was her tyranny veiled in alliance. Guards stormed the halls, Nithurian delegates shifting uneasily, sensing the shift. Elara grabbed Lyra's hand, his mind racing to process the betrayal while adrenaline surged. "We have to stop her," he said, his voice steadying with resolve, but the twist lingered like a shadow. Mia's survival meant everything he'd built with Elara could crumble. They burst from the alcove into the fray, the grand hall transformed into a battlefield of confusion. Zerathian loyalists clashed with those awakening to the deception, energy blasts lighting the air like fireworks gone wrong. Elara dodged a stray bolt, pulling Elara behind a pillar, her gown tearing slightly in the haste, revealing the graceful curve of her leg, a fleeting reminder of their intimacy amid the turmoil. "The throne room shall be there, activating the core," Elara said, her voice fierce, the princess emerging as a warrior. But as they moved, the nanites fed them more. Elara's plan involved sacrificing the Nithurian fleet to fuel the gates, turning allies into energy sources. Ellie's heart pounded, the surprise of Mia's existence fueling him forward. But doubt gnawed. Could he trust the visions, or was this another layer of manipulation? They navigated the corridors, evading patrols with the aid of their synced nanites, which now granted them enhanced senses, Elara anticipating attacks with unnatural precision, Elara channeling energy shields to deflect blasts. A guard lunged, his armor humming with power, but Elara countered with an improvised hack, his hybrids overriding the suit systems, leaving the assailant frozen in place. "Not bad for a janitor," Elara quipped, a spark of their earlier humor piercing the tension, but her eyes held the weight of betrayal. As they neared the throne room, the twist evolved into action. A hidden chamber revealed itself via the link, a vault of ancient artifacts where Elara had concealed the master control. Bursting in, they found her alone, poised over a glowing console, her back turned as if expecting them. "Ah, the lovers arrive," she said without turning, her voice dripping with mock affection. The room was a cavern of crystals pulsing with nanite energy, the air thick with power. Elara spun, her eyes, so like Elara's, cold with ambition. "You think this is betrayal, daughter? It's evolution. The gates will make Zerathia eternal, with me as its heart." Elara stepped forward, hurt etching her features. "At what cost? My life, Elis, the Nithurians." But Elara laughed, a chilling sound that echoed off the walls. "Costs are for the weak. Elara was always the key, his human resilience, fused with our tech. And Mia? She's the prototype, safe in the void until I need her power." The revelation hit like a supernova. Elara had orchestrated Mia's death to test the nanites, using Ella's grief to propel him here. Surprise twisted into rage for Ellie. "You monster," he growled, lunging forward. But Elara activated a barrier, a shimmering field that separated them. "Join me, or perish," she commanded, her fingers dancing over controls that began opening micro-rifts, tiny portals swirling with dark energy, pulling at the air. Elara channeled her power, blasting the barrier with nanite-infused bolts, cracks forming like spiderwebs. Elara joined, their bond amplifying the assault, the room shaking as artifacts toppled. "We end this now," he said. But Mia's voice echoed again, "Daddy, she's lying. The gate's there for freedom." Another layer unfolded. Mia wasn't a prisoner, she was the Guardian's heir, evolved in the realm, and Elara sought to enslave her essence. In a surge, the barrier shattered, Elara tackling Elara as Elara overrode the console. The queen fought back with surprising ferocity, her own enhancements revealing her as more machine than monarch. Punches landed, energy crackling, but Elara's human grit prevailed, pinning her as Elara sealed the rifts. "It's over," Elara declared, tears streaming. But Elara's final words twisted the knife. "Fools, the real twist is, Elara, you're not her father. Mia is mine, a clone of my lost child, implanted in you to ensure loyalty." The surprise detonated. Elara's memories of Mia's birth were fabricated, his life a constructed narrative to deliver the hybrid. Stunned, he faltered, Elara breaking free momentarily, but Elara struck the final blow, disabling her mother's systems with a targeted pulse. Elara collapsed, systems failing, her eyes dimming. "For power I'd do it again," she whispered, before going still. The room quieted, the gates stabilized, but Elara sank to his knees, the powerful twist leaving him hollow. Elara knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his shaking form. "Whoever Mia is, your love for her was real," she said softly, her body a anchor in the storm. But as the nanites calmed, Mia's presence strengthened. "Brother, help me home." The ultimate surprise, Mia wasn't daughter or clone. She was Elara's sibling, hidden in plain sight, their shared blood the true catalyst. With empires in flux and truths reshaped, Elara and Elara rose, hand in hand, the adventure twisting into uncharted paths. Nithurian ships hovered, awaiting direction, while Zerathia looked to them for leadership. The bond held, but the surprises promised more revelations, drawing them deeper into the stars' embrace. As empires teetered on the brink of transformation and truths hung heavy like storm clouds over the crystal spires, Elara and Elara stepped out from the vault's dim glow into the chaotic corridors of the palace, their hands still intertwined in a grip that felt like the only solid thing in a universe unraveling. The air buzzed with urgency, alarms wailing in discordant harmony, guards scrambling in confusion, some loyal to the fallen queen, others awakening to the deception that had shrouded their world for years. Elis' mind reeled from the cascade of revelations: Mia as his sister, not daughter, Elara's grand scheme, a web of lies that had ensnared them all. But there was no time to dwell. Nitherian ships loomed in the skies above, their crystalline hulls casting eerie shadows, waiting for a signal that could tip the balance toward alliance or annihilation. Lyra led the way, her torn gown fluttering like a battle flag, exposing flashes of her pale, curvaceous form that drew startled glances from passing warriors, awkward stares that she ignored with regal poise, though Islay caught her cheeks flushing under the scrutiny. "We need to reach the command spire," she said, her voice steady but edged with the drama of a princess turned rebel. "From there, we can broadcast the truth, expose Mother's, Elara's plan before the Nitherians decide we're the enemy." Ely nodded, his own robe askew from the scuffle, bunching uncomfortably around his legs and making him jog with an undignified hitch in his step. "Great. Because nothing says trust us like a human in fancy pajamas leading a revolution," he quipped, injecting a dash of humor to cut through the tension. Though his heart pounded with the stakes: if they failed, Zerathia could fracture, and Maya's call from the void might go unanswered forever. They rounded a corner into a throng of advisors and guards, the scene erupting into heightened drama as loyalties clashed like colliding asteroids. One elder advisor, his pointed ears quivering with indignation, pointed a trembling finger at them. "Traitors! The Queen's heirs turn against her?" But before he could rally the crowd, Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding, her white hair whipping in the artificial winds stirred by the palace's failing systems. She was no queen, she was a manipulator. "The nanites reveal all, we've seen the records." Ely backed her up, activating a holographic projector from a nearby console, but in his haste, he fumbled the controls, accidentally broadcasting a snippet of their earlier intimate ritual, instead of the evidence, a fleeting image of entangled limbs that flashed across every screen in the hall. The room froze in awkward silence, gasps rippling through the assembly like a wave, faces turning shades of Zerathian blue in embarrassment. Elis' face burned hotter than a reactor core. "Wrong file. Sorry, folks, that was a classified bonding protocol," he stammered, scrambling to switch feeds, while Lyra shot him a look that mixed exasperation and amusement, her lips twitching despite the chaos. "Ely, your timing is impeccable, as in, impeccably terrible," she muttered, but the mishap broke the tension, a few guards chuckling nervously, their weapons lowering as doubt crept in. The humor, unintended as it was, humanized them, turning potential enemies into hesitant allies. One young warrior even snorted, "Humans always with the surprises," easing the drama just enough for Lyra to seize the moment and project the real data: Elara's secret dealings, the fabricated curses, Mia's true origins. As the holograms played out, detailing the Queen's schemes in vivid, damning detail, the drama escalated: advisors whispering furiously, guards dividing into factions, a few lunging at Ely and Lyra in desperate loyalty to the old regime. Ely dodged a swing from a burly enforcer, his robe catching on a console edge and ripping audibly, leaving him half exposed in a comically vulnerable state. "Whoa, easy there, big guy, I'm not dressed for a fight," he yelped, countering with a nanite-enhanced shove that sent the attacker stumbling into a decorative fountain, splashing water everywhere in a slapstick tumble. Lyra, graceful as ever, channeled a precise energy burst to disarm another, her gown slipping off one shoulder in the fray, adding an layer of awkward distraction that made even the attackers hesitate. "Focus, everyone, this isn't a peep show," she called out, pulling the fabric back with one hand while blasting with the other, her voice laced with a hint of wry humor that mirrored Elis. The corridor devolved into a whirlwind of action, heightening the stakes as reinforcements poured in from both sides: Nitherian envoys beaming down in shimmering transports, their silver skins rippling with confusion, demanding explanations amid the melee. Ely and Lyra fought back to back, their bond syncing their movements like a well-rehearsed dance. He hacked enemy armors with quick nanite overrides, she shielded them with barriers of pure energy. But the awkwardness peaked when a Nitherian delegate, mistaking the chaos for a Zerathian welcoming ritual, extended a tentacle-like appendage in greeting right into the path of a flying debris chunk. Apologies, honored ones. Is this the proof of essence you spoke of? It boomed, retracting hastily as Ely swatted the debris away, laughing despite himself. Buddy, if this is your idea of a party, remind me not to invite you to Earth barbecues. Amid the humor-laced skirmish, drama surged when a loyalist captain activated a palace-wide lockdown, massive crystal doors slamming shut with resounding booms, trapping them in a section teeming with hostiles. Lyra's eyes widened, her body pressing close to Ayla's for a moment of shared resolve, the warmth of her curves a fleeting comfort against the cold reality. We can't hold them forever, she whispered, her breath quickening as blasts ricocheted off her shield. Ayla's mind raced, tapping into the nanites for a desperate hack. The systems were locked, but Mia's voice echoed again, use me channel through the void. The idea struck like lightning, awkward as it felt to rely on a spectral sibling he'd just met. He opened the link wider, pulling Mia's evolved essence into the fray. Energy surged through them, Mia's presence manifesting as a holographic figure, a young woman with features blending human grit and Zerathian grace, her form flickering like a ghost in the machine. Brother, let's end this charade, she said, her voice resonating through the hall, stunning everyone into a momentary hush. The drama intensified as she revealed more. Elara had cloned her from stolen DNA, intending her as a weapon, but Mia had transcended in the realm, becoming a guardian of gates. With her aid, Ellie overrode the lockdown, doors grinding open as Netherian forces flooded in, turning the tide. But the awkward revelation hit home. Mia's hologram glanced at Lyra with a sly smile. Nice choice, Ely. She's got spirit and curves that could launch 1,000 ships. Ely groaned, facepalming amid the battle. Sis, not the time for matchmaking commentary. Laughter bubbled from Lyra, a light amid the storm, as they pressed forward, Mia's power amplifying their attacks, blasts that disarmed rather than destroyed, converting foes through truth rather than force. The captain surrendered, dropping to his knees in defeat, his face a mask of shattered illusions. The queen she promised eternity, he murmured, the drama of betrayal etching deep lines on his features. Illy clapped a hand on his shoulder, awkward in his half-torn robe. Yeah, well, eternity's overrated if it's built on lies. Join us, free coffee in the new regime. The quip earned a reluctant chuckle from the captain, easing his surrender and symbolizing the shift. As they ascended to the command spire, the palace stabilizing under their command, the skies cleared, Netherian ships descending in formation, not as conquerors, but collaborators. Yet drama lingered in the air. Mia's hologram solidified briefly, hugging Ely in an ethereal embrace that felt strangely real, her eyes turning to Lyra with warmth. Take care of him, sister-in-law. The term hung awkwardly, implying futures yet unwritten, making Ely stutter. Whoa, slow down, we haven't even had a first date without world-ending drama. Lyra's laughter echoed, her arm linking with his, her body leaning in with promise. Then let's make the next one count. From the spire's pinnacle, they broadcast the truth's Mia's story, Elara's fall, the gate's potential for peace. Crowds below erupted in a mix of cheers and sobs, the empire reshaping in real time. But as the transmission ended, an awkward hush fell between Ely, Lyra, and Mia's fading form. I can't stay, Mia said softly, the drama of parting tugging at hearts. The realm calls, but I'll be watching. With a wink she added, and Ely? Work on that wardrobe, heroes shouldn't fight in rags. Her humor lingered as she vanished, leaving them alone atop the world, hands clasped, ready for whatever awkward, dramatic twists the stars had in store. The night deepened, celebrations brewing below, but Ely pulled Lyra close, the humor fading into tender quiet. From janitor to galactic savior with the universe's worst family reunion, he mused, earning her smile. Yet beneath it, drama simmered. Mia's realm held more secrets, and distant signals from other gates flickered on consoles, hinting at new threats. Awkward as their path had been, it forged them stronger, a bond unbreakable amid the cosmos' whims. As they descended to lead, side by side, the adventure pulsed onward, laced with laughter, love, and the thrill of the unknown. As the echoes of Mia's parting words faded into the starlit night, leaving behind a trail of ethereal light that danced across the spire's crystalline surfaces, Ely and Lyra stood together at the pinnacle of Zerathia, gazing out over a world forever changed. The crowds below had shifted from chaos to cautious jubilation, bonfires igniting in the plazas like beacons of hope, their flames reflecting in the eyes of citizens who now saw not just a princess and a stranger, but saviors who had peeled back the veil of deception. Lyra's hand remained in his, her fingers warm and steady, a silent promise amid the whirlwind of events that had brought them here. The awkward fumblings and dramatic upheavals of the day seemed distant now, softened by the quiet that settled over them like a comforting cloak, but Ailey couldn't shake the lingering pull of Mia's presence, her revelation a bridge to a family he'd never known, her absence a void that begged to be filled. "We can't leave her there," Ailey said softly, his voice carrying the weight of unresolved longing as he turned to Lyra, her violet eyes catching the moonlight in a way that made his heart ache with affection. She nodded, her white hair stirring gently in the breeze, the torn edges of her gown whispering against her skin like a reminder of their shared battles. "No, we won't. The gates are stable now thanks to you, to us. We'll bring her home." Her words held a quiet determination, the kind born from love rather than duty, and she leaned into him, her curvaceous form fitting perfectly against his side, offering solace in the simple act of touch. The Empire stretched out beneath them, its spires glowing with renewed energy, the Nithurian ships hovering not as threats but as guardians, their silver hulls patrolling the skies in silent alliance. In the days that followed, as Zerathia began to heal from Elara's shadow, Ellie and Lyra worked side by side to forge a new path. The command spire became their temporary haven, a nexus of strategy and intimacy where advisors bustled with holographic maps and diplomatic envoys from distant realms arrived bearing gifts of peace. Ely, once a lone technician haunted by loss, found himself at the center of it all, his human ingenuity blending seamlessly with Zerathian elegance. He tinkered with the nanites in quiet moments, refining the code with Lyra's input, her graceful fingers dancing over controls as they laughed over minor glitches, turning potential disasters into shared triumphs. "Remember when you broadcast our private moment?" she teased one evening, her pointed ears twitching with amusement as she perched on the edge of a console, her legs crossed in a way that drew his gaze to the smooth curve of her thigh. Ellie chuckled, setting aside a data pad to pull her into his lap, the warmth of her body igniting familiar sparks. "How could I forget?" Nearly started a new cultural trend, accidental hero holograms. His hands settled on her waist, feeling the subtle hum of their linked nanites, a constant reminder of how deeply they were entwined. But beneath the humor, a deeper current ran the plan to retrieve Mia. Using the stabilized gates, they mapped a journey into the void realm, a dimension of swirling energies where time bent and realities overlapped. Nithurian experts contributed their ancient lore, their tentacle-like appendages gesturing animatedly during briefings, adding an awkward charm to the proceedings. Ailey once mistook a gesture for a high five, leading to a tangle of limbs and laughter that lightened the room's tension. As preparations intensified, the drama of leadership tested them. Factions within Zerathia, still loyal to Elara's memory, stirred unrest in the outer provinces, whispering of human interference and stolen thrones. Lyra faced them head-on, addressing assemblies with a poise that commanded respect, her speeches weaving tales of unity and redemption. Ile stood by her side, his presence a symbol of the impossible bonds that could heal divides, though he often felt out of place in the opulent halls, his simple earth slang clashing with formal rhetoric, eliciting chuckles from the crowd. "Look, folks," he'd say during one heated debate, "we're all just trying not to blow up the galaxy. Let's keep the nanites friendly, yeah?" The humor disarmed skeptics, turning potential conflicts into dialogues, and Lyra's admiring glances made every awkward moment worthwhile. Yet, the true heart of their story lay in the quiet interludes, stolen away from the Empire's demands. In the royal gardens, under canopies of bioluminescent vines that glowed like captured stars, they shared stories of their worlds, Ile recounting Earth's chaotic beauty, from bustling cities to serene oceans, while Lyra described Zerathia's hidden wonders, like the whispering caves where echoes foretold futures. Their conversations often led to tender embraces, bodies coming together in a dance of rediscovery, the nanites enhancing every caress until pleasure blurred with emotion. Lyra's pale skin would flush under his touch, her full form arching in response as they lost themselves in each other, the intimacy a balm for the scars of betrayal and loss. "You're my anchor," she'd whisper, her lips brushing his ear, and Ely would hold her closer, marveling at how a curse had led to this profound love. The mission to retrieve Mia became the culmination of their journey, a venture that blended science, courage, and the unbreakable thread of family. With a small fleet of hybrid ships, Zerathian grace fused with Nithurian resilience, they ventured through the gate, the void unfolding around them like a dreamscape of infinite possibilities. Ely piloted the lead vessel, Lyra at his side, her hand on his shoulder a steadying force as distortions warped the stars. Mia's signal grew stronger, guiding them through labyrinthine energies where illusions tempted and dangers lurked, shadowy entities born of forgotten wars, testing their resolve with visions of alternate lives. In one harrowing moment, a phantom Elara appeared, her form mocking their bond, but Ailey and Lyra faced it together, their linked nanites dispelling the mirage in a burst of light. "She's nothing compared to us," Lyra said, her voice fierce, and Ailey kissed her fiercely, the act of defiance that strengthened their path. At the realm's core, they found her Mia, no longer a flickering hologram, but a being of luminous energy, her features a harmonious blend of human warmth and alien etherealness. She floated in a nexus of swirling code, her eyes lighting with joy at the sight of Ely. "Brother," she said, her voice resonating like a symphony, and as he reached out, the nanites bridged the gap, pulling her into corporeal form. The reunion was a tapestry of emotions, tears mingling with laughter, hugs that spanned lost years. Mia embraced Lyra too, sensing the depth of their connection. "You've given him a future," she whispered, and Lyra smiled, her arms encircling them both in a circle of newfound family. Returning to Zerathia as heroes, they were greeted with parades that lit the skies, banners fluttering in colors of unity. Mia integrated seamlessly, her guardian knowledge ushering in an era of prosperity, gates opened for trade, not conquest, alliances forged with realms beyond imagination. Ely, once a single dad janitor in name only, found purpose in mentoring hybrids like himself, blending Earth tech with cosmic wonders. But his greatest joy was Lyra, their love blooming in private sanctuaries where passion reignited nightly, her body a canvas of desire under his hands, their moans echoing like stars being born. Years passed in a blur of peace, Zerathia thriving as a beacon of harmony. Ely and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the twin moons, Mia by their side, watching children human-alien hybrids play in the gardens below, symbols of a blended future. Who would have thought a curse could lead to this? Ely mused, pulling Lyra close, her head resting on his shoulder, her curvaceous form a perfect fit against him. She laughed softly, the sound melodic and free. "Not a curse, my love, a beginning." As the moons rose higher, casting silver light over their world, they kissed, the universe unfolding endlessly around them, a testament to the power of impossible bonds and the humanity that conquered the stars. In that embrace, all twists resolved into serenity, a good ending written in the constellations above.